Tubers, tubettes, various crazy people. The title of this video is She Love You Longtime Online, with the emphasis on online. Now, I think this video can only be made due to the fact that we've had this pandemic and COVID. And gentlemen and ladies and everybody else that have wanted to come out to the Philippines or anywhere else for that matter have simply not been able to do so. It's been 2.5, 3 years since the beginning of all that before people could actually begin to travel. And back in February, that's exactly what happened. They opened up the borders to some degree, and guys started to come in. May and I have been fortunate enough to be able to meet with a lot of these guys and have coffee or lunch or just say hi. And we've had the opportunity to hear their stories. And while not everybody fits into this category of the online romance deal, a whole bunch of guys do. And over the months, I've noticed a very common thread amongst the conversations that I've had with them. And the results have really not been good. They've been less than what was expected. So real quickly, I won't take a lot of time with this video. What I've been hearing from guys is that they had planned to come out to the Philippines. COVID hit, they were locked down, so they got online. They were not only researching the Philippines, but in the meantime, out of boredom or whatever it was, they got online on a dating site or whatnot and started perusing different Filipinas and meeting them and chatting with them. And so many of these guys, if I talk to 50 guys, I would say 25 of them got involved with someone for a year or more, exclusively, on their end at least, of chatting with her and basically falling in love because she was perfect. The the dynamic was almost always the same. Because I would ask him, I'd say, well, how did you know she was perfect? And they would say, well, not only was she beautiful, but she was a good girl. She was living out in the province. She did this, she did that, but she never asked me for any money. And I said, oh, that's awesome. And I said, did you send him any money? And they said, oh, yeah. And depending on who I talked to, the amounts varied. And so some guys were really pretty conservative, just on their budget. They would send, I don't know, $50 or something like that a month, maybe. And other guys were going in deep. They were all in. They were building houses and paying for this and buying that and whatnot. And again, we're all big boys and girls here. So if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. I'm a firm believer, however, I will express this opinion, that that's really not a good idea, in my humble opinion. I think it's best to come out here first. Then if you want to meet somebody online, great, go online, meet somebody, but at least you're here. And you can, if nothing else, call their bluff as to whether or not they want to meet you or not. Because, and I'm not blaming the Filipinas, the pandemic not only made lonely men lonelier, it also made possibly desperate Filipinas that much more desperate due to lack of job opportunities, income, etc. So it was kind of a perfect storm, I think, for this kind of dynamic. And I have met yesterday the exception to the rule. I met a gentleman that talked for over 4 years to a Filipina, actually married her online prior to coming out here, and just so happens he's staying at the same hotel May and I are visiting today, and I met them both, and they're both just as happy as can be with each other. And you can kind of see it. You can tell when it's being forced, and you can tell when it's not. So there's a great story right there. But so many guys that I talked to said, yeah, I had this ongoing thing with her, and she was always like this and always like that, and we connected so deeply and whatnot. And they came out here and they met the person in person. And after 1, 2 days, maybe as long as a week, they decided that there just wasn't any chemistry there. Some of the women refused to meet them once they arrived, after having for a year or 2 years telling them how much they couldn't wait to meet them, how they were anticipating it, how much they appreciated the support, and how they wanted them to meet their families and do this and do that. And the guy gets out here and they just bang, ghost him. Or they did meet in person, and either the girl, or the woman I should say, didn't act the same or have any kind of affection towards the guy, didn't want him to touch her, didn't want anything to do with him, pretty much just sort of sat there. Or the guy would meet her and find that he didn't have any kind of vibe once together. And it's so easy, I suppose, to put on your best face and say all the right things when you're 7,000 miles apart. But it's a whole other dynamic when you're sitting right next to each other. And you're seeing the person in real time. There's just chemistry, I guess you'd call it, and it's just not working. And I thought, and these guys are like really kind of down and out because of it. I realized the pandemic slowed everything down and kind of forced this to extend. The usual story used to be back in the day that a guy would make plans to come out to the Philippines. He would do his research. He would be watching vloggers about different cities, different places. He would be getting budget ideas. And then in his idle time, he would also be chatting up with some Filipinas and maybe making those same arrangements. But during the COVID time, all that got extended out, and they formed this bond, if you will, and for some reason, it just sort of collapsed. Now, I was talking with May the other day about this topic, and she really surprised me because she told me this. She said, yeah, she has friends, she's acquaintances, she knows women that are supposedly looking for a boyfriend, and I always just took that for, a boyfriend that they want to meet and then meet in real. But May clued me in. She said, no, they don't ever want to really meet them. This is not all of them. This is just some. This is a percentage. They just want to have them as a boyfriend online. And I already knew the answer to the question, but I said, well, why is that? She said, well, support. They send them X amount of pesos or dollars per month, and that's how they're getting through life. Some of them already have boyfriends. Some of them don't like the guy at all. They just chat him up and tell him what he wants to hear. And they want the boyfriend online, but they don't want the boyfriend in real. They're not attracted to him. They're not attracted to his physical appearance or anything else. And the guys, unfortunately, are kind of falling for it hook, line, and sinker. So the best story that I can tell you about this is about a year ago, a guy called me up and he said, hey man, can I talk to you for 15 minutes on Messenger? Would that be a problem? And I said, no, not at all. And he said, well, when would be good? I said, well, right now. Because at that time I had 15 minutes. This is what he was asking for. So he calls me up and he says, hey, I'm chatting with so-and-so and you know her. And I said, really, who is it? And he told me her name and I didn't recognize it. And he goes, well, she's never been on your channel and she's never been on Baby May's channel, but you were together with her and I saw a picture of you with her on Facebook. And then he sent me a screenshot of the Facebook picture and I said, oh yes, yeah, I do remember her. May and I did spend some time with that person while she was dating one of our friends and we went to a resort or something. He goes, well, he said, her and I are chatting online And she's starting to ask, and she was, let me back up a little. She's very beautiful, and she's very sexy and all that kind of stuff. Her English is awesome. And he says, her and I have been chatting for a while, and now she's starting to give me all the sob stories, and she's asking me for money. He says, I can afford to send her the money, but do you think it's real? What's your advice? And I did know the woman, and I did know the circumstances when she was here with another fellow. And I said, I have one word for you on this woman. Run. Run as far as you can from this so-called relationship, because it's not going to end well. I know how this woman's built. I know what she's all about. And no disrespect to her. She's doing what she's got to do. But just whatever you sent her so far, I don't care to know what it is, just cut your losses. And he said, all right, thank you. And then, just as a caveat to that, I had 2 other guys contact me after that about the same person. And said, hey, I was talking to so-and-so, the woman, and I mentioned your name, me, because they watched the channel, and asked if she knew me. And she said, oh yeah, I'm friends with Paul and Baby May. And they said, so you know her? I said, yeah, I know her. And they said, what do you think? And I told them, these other 2 guys, the exact same thing. Run. They said, you know, you're the second guy, 3rd guy to call me about her. And she's just taking you down the garden path, buddy. Cut your losses. The original guy that called me, I'll say a week ago again. I didn't remember who he was until he reminded me of the conversation. And he says, can I borrow you for 15 more minutes? I said, sure, no problem. When can I call you? Yeah, right now. I'm not doing anything. So I had forgotten about him until he reminded me of the story. And I said, oh yeah, I know you. Well, he had met another woman that, yes, I know her. And he said, he kind of gave me the background on her. And he says, you know what? He says, I really like this woman. I know she's got all these 2 or 3 kids. And she's never asked me for a dime. He says every now and he told me her situation. And you know what? The situation that she explained to him was 100% accurate, because I've known this woman since I moved here. I've known her for 5 years. I knew her ex-boyfriend and what a Looney Tune he was, and the drama he put her through. And I just know her to be a solid chick. I don't know how else to put it. And he goes, what do you think? And I said, you know what, bro? I said, if you want, he goes, should I support her or should I give her? I said, I can't answer that question. I said, but I do know this. If you can afford to send her whatever your number is, $50, $100 a month, and then do it without expecting anything in return. In other words, just do it because you want to help a human being. This is a single mom. She does have 2 or 3 or 4 kids. I honestly don't remember, because I know her sort of superficially. But knock yourself out. It would really help her out. It really would go towards school supplies, food, rent. I know she works. She's been working at the same place for 5 years. She makes very little money. And she got used and abused to some degree by another foreigner and tore her up. I said, if you meet her and you guys get along, great. If you don't ever meet her, or you do meet her and you don't get along, then that's just going to have to let be nature. That's the chemistry in this thing. That's if, you know, when you're together, it's one thing as opposed to being far away. I said, so if you do send her money, do it without any kind of expectation, and do it simply for the sake of doing a nice thing for a nice person. Otherwise, just keep your wallet shut. And he took that advice, if you want to call it advice. And he said, you know what, I think you're right. He says, I think I will send her $100 a month because it doesn't change my life, but I do know it changes hers. I said, I agree. And so That's where we left it. So, moral of the story on this is that desperate people do desperate things, and COVID created a lot of desperation. Desperation was created on this end by lack of income, lack of job opportunities, the lockdowns, etc. So the poor people out here got poorer. And men in America who, or that's my home country, but any country I suppose this applies to, they became more and more desperate because they were getting ready to retire. They're lonely. They're alone. They're feeling melancholy, and they start to do more desperate things as time moved on, as opposed to being able to just board on a plane and get out here and start tapping around and making it happen. They too were desperate. So, moral of the story is caveat emptor. And I think that if you're going to send somebody money out here and you do it for the right motivation, in other words, you don't expect anything in return, you're not going to expect a payout. I can tell you right now, you're not the hero. You're not going to cure anything. I don't care if you send them $50 or $50,000. It tends to just fuel more and more and more. I would say stay offline until you actually arrive out here and you can meet that person in person. And many guys come out here, get online, and the woman is no more than 20 minutes away, and guess what? She won't even come and meet you. She just wants to play online. All right, kids, that's it. That's my speech. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I hope everybody's doing well, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.